Once again, you are welcome to Evangelist Nhima Kalu TV, Treasurer of Excellent Knowledge. As you know, I am your serviceable servant, Evangelist Nhima Kalu. I want to speak on the topic, protecting your dominion. The dominion is God-given to humanity. Right from creation, God gave us the dominion. But we have the responsibility to protecting that dominion. It is a responsibility we all have been failing to carry out. Some of us started well by holding this dominion jealously, guarding it jealously, and protecting it from attack and from losses. But we are not consistent with that. There are people who do not know that there is something called dominion given to us humanity against all other creatures, including against Satan. The power to rule just below God but above every other thing that exists on this earth, including the demonic, the spirit world. We are given the dominion, but a lot of us do not know the existence of that dominion given to us. Some of us know of it, but due to carelessness in different ways, many of us have lost that dominion. In fact, all of us have lost that dominion. But the recovery of that dominion started from the resurrection of Jesus Christ. After he had won victory to us, he restored it back to humanity, then leaving it in our hand to continue protecting it. As it is today, many are still losing that dominion again to the adversary. I want to use Adam and Eve, Jesus Christ, as the case example on this message, protecting your dominion. In protecting your dominion, there are four things you must do to protecting your dominion. And the reason Adam and Eve could not protect their dominion is because they failed to apply these four principles. The reason Jesus protects his own dominion is because he never fails to apply this principle. The reason most of us, humanity, have lost this dominion is because almost all of us have failed to apply this principle. But this principle is the price to protecting the dominion. The first one is, okay, let me read the text first. Starting from Genesis chapter 2, verse 15 to 17. I'm reading from ESV, English Standard Version. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to walk it and keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, You may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. Chapter 3 from verse 1 to 6. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, Did God actually say, You shall not eat of any tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, You shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. But the serpent said to the woman, You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Verse 6. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. So, this is the text. In comparison, Matthew chapter 4 from verse 1 to 11, the encounter of Jesus Christ in the wilderness against the same serpent, the devil, the devilic spirit, speaking to him, trying to lure him in, trying to bring him down, trying to push him into committing errors so that he will lose his dominion, trying to distract him from focusing on the assignment for which he had come to the earth. So the Satan tried it on Adam and Eve and succeeded, but could not succeed in Jesus Christ. So there is the possibility of us not allowing Satan to succeed. Remember the topic, protecting your dominion. The first requirement or principle or factor required to protecting your dominion is insisting on the God's standard. Insisting on the God's standard. God has said to Adam and Eve, eat of the rest of the fruits, but this particular one, do not eat it for the reasons I have explained to you. God made it, make it known to them that it is a tree of knowledge of good and evil. So forget about it. It is my fruit. I have given you the rest. Just that one. This is what it is. But leave it. It is not for you. So they could not maintain that God's standard. They could not. That is the reason Eve listened, gave a proper attention to the serpent, began to interact with the serpent, and the serpent confused her, manipulated her, deceived her into eating of that fruit. And she gave also to her husband, and her husband took from her and ate. They were unable to maintain the God standard. God's standard said, do not take from it, do not eat. So it doesn't matter whosoever that will say otherwise, or will introduce a different kind of doctrine, or will introduce anything contrary. In fact, it is non-negotiable. It is non-negotiable. Don't even negotiate. Just maintain that God's standard. When you are maintaining God's standard, you are exhibiting integrity. You are exhibiting integrity. And it makes you to set boundary. God has used his standard to set boundary. God has used his standard of law to establish integrity, to establish reality of life, to establish his own order. God's standard must be protected. We must insist on the God's standard for everything to protecting our dominion. The second one is that never consider the adversary. Eve began to consider the adversary, which is the serpent. Jesus never considered the adversary. The adversary approached him, spoke to him, but he never allowed the adversary to interact, to negotiate, to bargain. Anything the adversary has to say, Jesus will always counter it and end it immediately. But Eve was considerate to the voice of that adversary. That voice of adversary is the voice that seduced her, confused her, shifted away the voice of God in her mind, then replacing it with the adversary's own voice inside of the mind of Eve. And Eve began to act and react based on the voice that was speaking into her mind at that point in time. So we must never consider the adversary. Jesus has declared to his disciples, as he is still declaring to us, he said that the evil one cometh and has nothing in me. The evil one is this adversary, the serpent, the Satan. Jesus is telling us there is nothing connecting him with that adversary, and nothing good. He says he's a liar and he is the father of lies. He said he only comes to steal and to kill and to destroy. But Jesus has come to give us life and abundant life, to give us the real life. Jesus is God. So we must not consider the adversary to interact, to bargain whether what God really said is true or not. This is where many Christians and the rest of the world fail it. They try to consider from the voice of adversary to know whether what God has said is really true or not. Somebody that has no business with God, he never created anything. When God was giving them all of these things, the adversary was not there. Somebody you never knew from anywhere coming to tell you otherwise from what you already know. It is God who has given you that dominion. Why do you allow yourselves to be distracted? That is where you make the great mistake. These are the mistakes Eve and Adam made, that made them to lose that dominion. And it is the same thing that Jesus refuses to do. Jesus refuses to make that mistake. He protected his own dominion. So it is possible and it is recoverable. Never consider the adversary. Then the third one, avoiding sentiment. You must avoid sentiment, most especially relational sentiment. Relational sentiment. Adam was sentimental. Adam never avoided sentiment. When Eve gave him that fruit of knowledge of good and evil, the prohibited fruit, Adam should not have collected that fruit from Eve, not to talk of eating it. Adam should have rebuked Eve for taking the fruits which God had commanded them not to take. Remember, even when God passed this law, Eve was not yet created. It was only Adam at that time, and Adam had the power of leadership in that marriage. God created him first with wisdom so that Adam would be the first and be the leader. But due to familiar sentiment, due to relational sentiment, because Eve was his wife, he failed to rebuke Eve. He began to consider her. He began to, this is my wife. Oh, this is my son. Oh, this is my daughter. Oh, this is my girlfriend. Oh, this is my boyfriend. Hey, this is my community member. Oh, this and that. You begin to adopt relational sentiment. Relational sentiment can cost you your dominion. It makes you to compromise. It makes you not to make the right decision. It makes you not to be resistant to evil that will affect your destiny. This is what happened to Adam. Adam should have rebuked Eve. Yes, Eve had made the mistake of taking and eating of that fruit. Adam should have the opportunity to say, who sent you to go and collect that fruit? In fact, don't involve me into it. Or when God comes, you give him the accounting. You explain to him why you have collected the fruit. I don't want God's trouble. In fact, I am not involved. Don't involve me. Why didn't you ask me first to know what I would do? Oh, if you have disappointed, if you are a disappointment, this is what Adam should have done. But Adam failed to do that. Anything you are doing in life as a Christian, anything that has to do with what God has given into your hand, if you apply relational sentiment or sentiment of any kind, know it. You are compromising the standard and you are about to lose your dominion. Your dominion manifesting in different areas. Your dominion, which is the integrity of your leadership, the prestige and dignity you have as a leader, you will be losing it if you cannot protect that standard. If you cannot say no to evil, if you cannot say no to evildoers, no matter whom he is. If sentiment becloud your heart, you will never go far as a leader. You can be there on the throne, but things cannot go well as supposed, and you can never fulfill purpose. And this is the truth you must know. This is the truth you must absorb for you to progress with your dominion in your ministry, in your marriage. Anything you are doing, is it in business or career, anywhere you are on the lead, anywhere something is given into your hand to protect, you must avoid sentiment of any kind, more especially relational sentiments. Then the last, which is the fourth one, be contented. Be contented. Let me read verse 6. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Both Adam and Eve were not contented. It is out of their greediness. Their greediness made them to crossing the boundary, to compromise standard, compromise standard, to go for what is not given to them, to cross their boundary. God used that law to set the healthy boundary, but their greediness, all that God has given to them, was no longer sufficient for them. Not based on hunger, but based on they want to be like God. This is what the devil told them. And that is exactly what it is. But God do not want them to be like him. It is an affront. Anything God has given to us is sufficient for us. We don't have to cross boundary. This is the attitude of the devil that made God to sack him from heaven in the first place. He carried the same thing and come to humanity because he is an outcast, but he had pledged not to allow human beings enjoy the relationship we have with God. So these are the things that Adam and Eve had committed, and as a matter of fact, in the end, they were driven away. God judged them, convicted them of their crime, of their rebellion, of their sin, and they were expelled from the garden of opportunity, from the garden of land, milk and honey, where there is gold, diamond, all of the mineral resources put together, include the forestry, everything under their control for their own consumption, just to be maintaining the same and be worshiping God. That is all that God. That is all which God required from them. But they align with the devil. They align with the devil, which stimulated their greediness. It is called lust. Their greediness is called lust. It is because of all these things I begin to write. So if you want to learn about lust and its problems, this is the book. Lust and its problem. Lust and their problems from points of reality. So this is the book, and the other books of mine, they are all available in Amazon and other platforms where they are marketed. Very wonderful books for educational purpose, for spiritual growth, for mental growth, for growth, development of different kind. You'll be sharpening your memory, making you to think fast and think accurately. Remember, I am an evangelical author. I am a custodian of Christianity. I am a human capital developer. I am your serviceable servant, evangelist Inyima Kalu. I will come your way once again very soon. I say to you, bye for now.